Today, I'm going to be talking about the best and worst things about being on BookTube. I am coming up on, or at, my 5-year anniversary of being on BookTube. I started my channel in March of 2020, and we are now, somehow, in March of 2025. It has been 5 years. I don't know exactly what my very first video was. I actually think it was a video, it was either a TBR or a wrap-up that I recorded because I was going to put it on Instagram. It was like an Instagram reel. I don't even know if Reels was a thing at the time, but it was a video I was putting on Instagram, and I was like, let me just upload it on YouTube as well and see what happens. I've since archived a couple of my super old videos, so I think the first video you see on my channel now is from like June of 2020, but March is when I officially did start my channel, and it's my 5-year anniversary. So in celebration of 5 years, I wanted to reflect on my time on BookTube, and I've been thinking about doing this video for a while. I almost did it last year, and then I just never did. So now seemed like a good time to do it. I feel like so much has happened in the past 5 years in the world and in my channel. I have lived in 3 different states in those 5 years. So I've had a lot of different backgrounds over the years. I haven't looked that drastically different, but I do feel like my voice is pretty different from how it was when I first started in my channel. And that's been a weird thing to go back and see what I sounded like just 5 years ago. And I feel like it just sounds wildly different from what I sound like now, which is very strange. I don't really understand the dynamics of how that happens, but I noticed that with other people too. Like if you watch their older videos, their voices sound so different, and it's just not something you think about. You don't realize how much your voice is changing over the years, but yeah, that's something that I notice a lot. My reading taste hasn't changed drastically, but it has a bit over the years. And I would say my content has changed in small ways, but not in large ways over the years. I feel like I've been doing kind of the same stuff around BookTube the past 5 years. I'm happy with what I do. I'd like to push myself a little bit more creatively. I feel like I have a little more energy for that now, but in some phases I don't have as much energy. I kind of default to the basics, and that's kind of been fine because I've always just been here to have fun. So sometimes I pour a lot of energy and a lot of creativity into my channel, and sometimes it's just, you know, I keep it running to keep it going on for a while until I find that energy again. So those are my general brain dumpy reflection thoughts on the past 5 years. I also want to say thank you so much for being here, whether you've been here for 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, or all 5 years. Thank you for supporting my channel with your time. Time is so valuable to all of us, and it means a lot that you are taking your time to engage with the content I put out. When I first started my channel, I really did not think I was going to amass much of a following at all. It was just something that I felt energized to do. Like I said, that first video was intended for Instagram because I've had an Instagram since 2015, a Bookstagram account. I actually had a YouTube channel before as well, and I think I've talked about this before, but I had a different YouTube channel I started when I was like 18 or 19, and that was in the era of like Jenna Marbles YouTube times. Very over the top kind of energy, and it didn't last. It wasn't very authentic to me. It didn't last, and I don't think I ever knew I would come back to do this. It really was just the perfect recipe of the COVID pandemic happened. I was home alone and bored, and this was how I engaged with people. And then once I started, I just never stopped, and I've been here ever since. So with all those rambly thoughts out of the way, let's jump into the worst and the best things. I think I'll start with the worst so I can end on a good note with the best. First one is something you probably hear a lot of booktubers talk about, and that is the fact that as a booktuber, you don't really read the way that you would if you were not a booktuber. And we all kind of find our own ways to deal with that. I also think it's a different situation based on like if you're doing booktube as your full-time income, or if you're doing booktube just as a hobby, if you're doing booktube with the idea that you want to grow a following, or if you genuinely don't care and you're just making the content. I think that bucket of people is very small. Everyone is putting their energy into this because they want it to work, right? And like there's this idea or the shame behind saying that, but it's just the reality. Like if you're doing this, you want people to watch it, you want people to engage. I don't think there's anything shameful in wanting to continue to grow your community. So with those factors in mind, and depending on what bucket you're in, like you're probably dealing with things in a different way. For me, as a person who I do booktube just for fun on the side, I don't feel as much pressure to shape my content and my reading around what will help my channel grow, but I am obviously still interested in my channel growing. So it does influence my reading and ultimately my content to some extent. Throughout the years, I have found a way that feels comfortable for me to balance reading what I want to read with reading what I think will make good content, and then continually finding a way to make good content out of things that I want to read instead of just like reading things only for the content. So sometimes there's books I'm reading that I probably wouldn't read at a high priority, you know, in the next 2 years. It's not the top of my TBR, but I feel like it'll make good content and I want to read it kind of, but like not as pressing. And so that's typically the biggest amount of sacrifice I'm making. I'm really not reading a lot of books that I don't want to read just for the sake of content. So that's not really a huge issue for me anymore. I think it has been at different points in my channel, but now like I am fully just reading what I want to read. I may not always be reading it at the speed that I want to though. If I didn't have a BookTube channel, I wouldn't be thinking in terms of months. And I think in terms of months with what I read and what I package and like what kind of diversity do I want to have in my wrap up at the end of the month. Even in terms of things like I read the Throne of Glass series last year. And if I didn't have a channel, I probably would have just read all of the books in a row. But I didn't want a wrap up where all I had to talk about was the Throne of Glass series because I just didn't want to. I just didn't want that. So I spread them out and I read one a month so that I still was able to keep up with my content, my reading vlogs. And I think that's the biggest thing I changed is probably the pacing and the order of what I read things. There's books that come out that I'm so excited for, but they just don't fit in my reading plans at the time, so I don't end up reading them. Whereas if I didn't have content to put out, I probably would just read them. But the main thing that gets me about having a BookTube channel, being a content creator around books, and how that affects my reading experience is I'm constantly thinking about what I am going to say about the book when I'm reading it. Even if I'm not reading it for a reading vlog, I'm just always thinking about that as I'm reading it. There's something in my brain I cannot turn off where if I'm halfway through a book, I'm like, is this a 3-star? Is it a 4? Is it a 2? Like, what's gonna happen? How am I gonna rate it at the end? What am I gonna say about this, this, and this? Who can I recommend this to? What book is this similar to? Like, I just can't turn that off in my brain and just read it. I've tried. I even went through a phase of not rating books to try to help that, but I don't like not rating books, so that didn't work out for me either. I don't know how to fix this. It's not particularly bothersome, but it is something that I wonder about sometimes. Like, how would my experience be different with reading if I could somehow not have that voice in the back of my head? The next worst thing is another thing you've probably heard booktubers talk about, and that is the algorithm. One of the worst things about being on BookTube is if you are not consistently uploading, the algorithm will hate you and they will punish you. And like I said, we're all here because we want success, right? We want to see these videos that we're pouring our hearts and our soul and our energy and our creativity into resonate with people. We want you to engage with it and comment on it and like it. And so we want our videos to do well in the algorithm. The algorithm is just how YouTube is choosing which videos to show users. So if I publish a video, are you seeing it on your home screen? Are you seeing it in a little recommended side box when you're watching someone else's video? Or is it an autoplay after someone else's video? There are a lot of things that go into how the algorithm works. One of those things is like watch time, how much people are actually watching your videos, what percentage of the video are they staying through, what kind of engagement are you getting on your videos? Because ultimately YouTube wants to keep viewers on YouTube. They want people to keep watching YouTube so they keep seeing more ads, so YouTube keeps making more money. So we want to make the algorithm happy. And something else that is really important to the algorithm is that you are consistently putting out videos. You want to take a 3-week break to go on vacation and then you return and you try to post a video and all of a sudden it's like your worst performing video, no one's watching it and you're like, what is going on? That's because you pissed off the algorithm. As much as we and I would love to not care about this, we and I do care about this. Again, this is something I've found a way to work throughout the years. I used to post 2 videos a week. Now I'm usually posting about 1 video a week because 2 videos a week is a lot when this is not your full-time job. And I found that 1 video a week still keeps my channel fresh. I would like to get back to 2. I know that would help my channel grow. I just haven't done it yet. I just have not gotten the energy to do it yet. So maybe one day I will, maybe I never will. I don't know. It's not important enough to me right now to care that much, but one day it might feel more important to me and I might try to do it again. But 1 video a week seems to keep YouTube happy with me, at least. I'm sure they would be happier if I was doing more than that. This keeps me in their good graces, and I've learned that if you want to take a break, you need to pre-film some stuff and have that ready to roll out so that you can take a break, but YouTube doesn't know you're taking a break, and you as a viewer don't always know we're taking a break, and you're still getting the content rolled out in a timely manner. This has really been fine for me. I'm a very organized person. I plan my videos out very far in advance. I always have a backlog of ideas. I'm never without an idea of what to do for content, but it is just annoying and something to know about. If you want to create a BookTube channel, this is one of the most annoying things about it, is trying to keep the algorithm happy with you. Something that has really started to become more important to me over probably the last 2 years or so, that maybe wasn't always as important to me, is the complicated feelings between not wanting to upset authors, but trying to strike a balance with being honest with your audience. I think a lot of booktubers are on a spectrum of this, right? You can tell there's people who really don't care if they're upsetting authors or not, and they will just fully be as negative as possible about a book. And they don't care. They're not worried about the author seeing it. Maybe they don't care if the author sees it. Maybe they're not thinking about if the author sees it. They're just going to give you full negative opinions no matter what. Then there's people who it feels like they censor themselves maybe and will refuse to say anything negative about any book so that no author could potentially get upset. And most people exist in the middle somewhere. And I think I exist in the middle, but leaning more towards not wanting to upset authors. At the end of the day, my channel is not for authors. Authors are not my primary audience, so I don't care a lot. Like, I'm not changing my content, but I am trying to be thoughtful in how I talk about books and also thoughtful in the content that I put out. In reality, BookTube is not a huge space. You know, it's not the biggest type of community out there. We're a smaller community, so it's not difficult to find things. Like, if you're an author and your new book comes out, it's not unlikely that if someone makes a video entirely dedicated to your book, even if they don't have a huge following, it's not unlikely that they won't see that video. And whether they click on it or not, like, that's their choice to make, and it's ultimately on them to engage or not engage with review content, because as soon as they're doing that, like, they know they are opening the door to potentially hear something they don't want to hear. But either way, it just weighs on you a little bit as a booktuber. At least it weighs on me. I'm always thinking about that in some extent. And it has changed my decisions over the years. I didn't care as much about it in the beginning because my channel wasn't as big, and I was like, no one's watching this. Like, authors aren't ever gonna see my content. It's not gonna matter. And then your channel grows, and then you have publishers reaching out to you, and you're getting books from publishers all the time. Sometimes you have authors reaching out to you directly, offering to send you their books. Sometimes you're maybe even forming relationships with authors, personal relationships, if you really like a certain author, and maybe you're, you know, DMing them on Instagram pretty frequently. And it just starts to make you think about it a little bit more, I guess. And at the end of the day, like, your review has to be unbiased, even if you're accepting books from publishers or you're accepting books from authors. I guess it doesn't have to be unbiased. I mean, you could choose to be biased if you want to be, and you could be sitting with that crowd that is just doing whatever they want to do to please authors. But like, I'm going to be unbiased. I'm still going to tell you my true opinion on a book. I'm not going to roast it unnecessarily though anymore. I may have in the past. I've definitely roasted books before. I think I also try to draw a line between roasting a book and roasting an author. Like, if I hate a book, that doesn't have to be a personal reflection on the author all the time. Like, if it's something problematic and it's clear that they're using it to spew problematic opinions, then like, absolutely. But if it's just like a poorly written book, I'm okay saying that it's poorly written. I don't have to say this author is so stupid and, you know, they should not be ever allowed to publish anything and they wasted my time. You know, I try to not put my opinions on the author. I put them on the book. And so I think that helps separate it in my mind a little bit. But this goes into the next point as well of something that I think is a little annoying. One of the worst things about being on BookTube is negative content performs better. That just seems to be true all the time. If you put out a video and you have a really negative expression in the thumbnail and you have a 1 star in the thumbnail and you say like, this is the worst book I've ever read, that's gonna perform so well. Like, people wanna click on that, people wanna hear that. And I used to do a lot more of that earlier in my channel, and I really moved away from that over the years. Because of this, I'm thinking about, like, I don't wanna be known for the things that I hate. I don't want to be known for the things that I dislike. I always think back to that quote at the end of the song Daylight by Taylor Swift, where she says, I want to be defined by the things I love, not the things I hate. That's how I want to present on my channel, which doesn't mean that I'm never going to tell you about the things I hate. Like right now I'm making a video telling you about some of the worst things about being on BookTube, but I don't want to be defined by that. I don't want 50% or more of my content to be roasting books, rant reviews. I think it's fine if people want to do that. I definitely watch and engage with that content myself, but I don't want to do that. That's not what I want to do with my space and my time. I feel like I have my channel to celebrate books and the things I enjoy about books, and I care more about getting good books out there than being really negative or even over the top for the sake of views, which I don't think everyone's doing it for the sake of views, but like, you know in your mind that's going to perform well. So anyway, that is why I have veered away from doing more negative content over the years. I don't put out worst books of the year videos anymore. I just talk about the best books I read in a year, the most unique books I read in a year, hidden gems, the most underrated books that I read in a year. That's how I like to spend my time. It's just not fun for me to put together a video talking about the worst books and telling you all the things I didn't like about them. That doesn't fuel me. That doesn't get me excited. So I don't really do that anymore. Also, if I ever am planning on doing a dedicated book video, if I really hate the book, I sometimes will cancel the video. I don't always do that. I think the most recent one I did was The Secret History. Really didn't like that book, and I still put that video out. But that's also like an older, very, very popular book that my opinion on The Secret History isn't going to do anything. You know, like that book's already existed and been as popular as it is, and I'm sure I'll do it again, and I will still have negative content that comes out, but it's just not going to be the majority of what my channel is ever. That's just not what I want to do. My next one is kind of a hot take and I don't want anyone to feel offended by this. This is what I mean. I'm like, I don't do negative things. I don't want to hurt people's feelings. And I don't mean this personally towards anyone, okay? I think this is just an observation I've made. I've been watching BookTube since 2013, 10 plus years of watching BookTube. And this is just an observation that I have had that I feel, and you can agree or you can disagree, but I think that Patreons are kind of ruining BookTube. Does this mean I don't think people should have Patreons? No, not at all. But I think how popular they've become has created an issue with public content feeling a little more stale en masse. It feels like we have stalled out a little bit on BookTube collectively in the past couple of years. And like, that's as much on me, right? Like, I'm not being as creative as I could be, but just like making an observation on BookTube as a whole. The pandemic, which is when I started this channel, I think spurred a lot of creativity in people, and it also might just be that people got tired from that initial burst and like just aren't doing as much creative stuff anymore. And this also doesn't mean that people aren't doing creative stuff. I don't want this to be a definitive statement, you know? This is just like generally, I think in general, the popularization of having a Patreon has created this environment where so many people put their most creative content behind a paywall. And I know exactly why they're doing that. It makes absolutely perfect sense, but it does create this symptom where what people are seeing on BookTube is like the stuff that you know will hit. Like I said, we're all trying to make the algorithm happy. So we're putting out wrap-ups, we're putting out TBRs. Everyone's putting out those reading vlogs, reading down their TBRs. There's TBR jars. I even started a TBR jar finally recently. All the stuff you know is going to work is what people keep putting out to keep their channel fresh and growing. And then they create Patreon communities or YouTube community memberships, whatever. And behind the paywall, they're creating these really engaging communities with places to chat with the communities, with fun challenges and bingo boards and game nights and movie watches and all these really fun interactive things. I'm a member of Patreons, by the way. I subscribe to multiple people's Patreons. I engage with this myself, so I'm not against Patreons. I just want to keep saying that. But because of that, there's some really cool content that isn't getting infused into BookTube. And so then it isn't getting the opportunity to succeed and to inspire other people to be more creative and to try different things, because all of the trying of different things tends to be happening behind paywalls. Even a lot of read-a-thons are happening behind paywalls now, whereas read-a-thons used to be these huge, you know, bigger community events. There's still plenty of read-a-thons. I've talked about read-a-thons before. You know my opinion on read-a-thons. But I don't know. I just think it's a little bit unfortunate And maybe my observation is completely wrong. Maybe these things are not related, but this is just kind of generally what I feel like I've been seeing over the years. And I wish people would put more of their creative things out in front of the world and take the risks, take the risk that it's not going to perform. On the other side, I know exactly why they're not, you know, like if it's your full-time job, then every video counts and that really matters, and you got to keep the algorithm happy. So again, I see how we get ourselves in the cycle. But if I'm talking about some of the things that are the worst things about being on BookTube right now, I think that is one of the things that I'm seeing. And I myself even had a community membership situation for a year on BookTube. I did that throughout the year of 2023. And I ultimately decided that it wasn't for me, at least at the time it wasn't for me. But I'm also in a position where I'm able to do that because YouTube is not something that has to be a significant source of income for me. I've got a full-time job out of this. I'm so okay. I don't need this income from YouTube. I'm here for the fun of it. So I also understand it's like a privileged take on not having a Patreon. Like so many people, these Patreons are their livelihood, which is so fine. And like keep doing your Patreons. I'm not saying end Patreons, but it's a theory I have as to why we maybe haven't made more of a creative shift in the last couple of years like we have in the past. The last worst thing about being on BookTube is something that I considered whether or not I even wanted to put in this video, but I was like, I'll be real. I'll give my real opinions. I'll be honest with you. And also, this is pretty deep in the video at this point. So if you're still watching, this is your little reward that you get to hear what this is. So thank you for still engaging with my content. If you are a part of any small environment in your adult life, literally anything, work, sports, clubs, a church, anything, you know that small communities for some reason always tend to replicate that feeling of high school, and there's all these different cliques and these different groups, and there can be drama and all these things going on behind the scenes. In the very beginning of me starting my BookTube channel, I was like so naive. I was like, oh my god, everybody loves each other, everything's perfect, it's this wonderful little community, we're all the same and everybody loves books and we all love each other and everything's gonna be a great time. And then the longer I've been on BookTube, the more I've just come to find out that that is not the reality of it at all. And I think there's some things that you see outside of the BookTube community where you can tell maybe when that's happening. There's a lot you don't see. There's a lot I don't even know about, I'm sure. There's so much I don't know about, I'm so sure. But you know, the utopia of it all, the bubble got burst for me a little bit. But as it is with all small communities, you just have to be a little, you know, guarded and a little intentional about who you're sharing your time with and trusting. And yeah, that's just a reality. That's just a reality of it is it's not always as warm as you might think it is. Now to go on to the best parts of being on BookTube, contrary to my last point, I will say this is a great community. There are so many wonderful people here. In majority, this is a great space to be. And particularly, it's great for connecting people who are like you in the sense that they read as much as you do. Because I think there's some kind of stat out there that like most people read less than 3 books a year, or that might even be a crazy amount. Like most people might read 1 or fewer books a year, something very small compared to BookTube reading. Like most people are not reading a ton of books. So if you're someone that reads 20 plus books in a year, or if you're really reading a lot and you're in the triple digits of the books you're reading per year, it's really difficult to find people in real life to connect with on that because people just aren't reading that fast for the most part. So I think one of the advantages of this community is it helps you easily connect with people who share the same passions you do. If you're flying through a series and you want to talk about it with someone, it's very easy to find someone who's enjoying that. If there are authors you love and you're reading their full backlist, it's very easy to find someone who has that same passion and enthusiasm for that, and to find people who are talking about, you know, the 20 books they read in a month. So you can hear opinions on a lot of things that you're looking at reading too. Even if you join an in-person book club, a lot of times the people in the book club are only reading that one book club book per month. So it's just difficult to find people to talk to about all these books that you're wanting to read. But if you're on BookTube, this is like the norm, and it's very easy to find people to connect to that share similar interests, that read as much as you do. So I think it's really great in creating that kind of community. Something that I've reflected on over the years that I like about BookTube, that has been an interesting thing to think about and almost challenge myself on sometimes too, is that BookTube is a very fun, creative outlet where you can engage with others and get instant feedback. And that's a rare thing to find in a creative hobby sometimes. For example, some of my other hobbies, I have been teaching myself to play piano. And when I do that, I'm just doing it with myself. Like I'm just sitting there playing the piano by myself. There's no one to talk to about it. Like if my partner's home and he hears me, I can say like, oh, can you guess what this piece is? And like, that's, you know, that's the extent of my engagement with others when I'm doing that hobby and getting any kind of feedback or validation from that creative outlet. I like to paint. And again, like it's just me sitting there painting, and I might show someone and say like, what do you think? Or I might hang it up in my house and people come over and they're like, oh, that looks really great. Who did that? Oh, you did that. That's amazing. But again, that's like very small, and mostly it's a thing I'm doing just for me. Reading a book. When I'm reading a book, it's just me and that book sitting there. I'm just sitting there reading the book, not really engaging with others. There's an aspect where you can, you know, go be in a book club and do that. But I mean like instantly with the hobby, like it's just, I'm sitting there just doing this by myself. A puzzle, again, just sitting doing it by myself. I crochet, just sitting there doing it by myself. Could I sell those at a market somewhere? Sure, I guess. But like the way I spend my time, no, it's just something I'm doing by myself. BookTube gives this creative outlet where you create something, you put it out there, and then it's instantly accessible for all these people to engage in, to give their thoughts on, for you to get some feedback on. You get feedback both in terms of comments people leave and also in the analytics side of how it's performing. And I'm personally very competitive with myself, and I like to use that to keep constantly challenging myself. And I really like that aspect of this. And something I've always had to balance in my head is I went to college and got a creative writing degree. That was what I did. Am I using that degree at all? I don't know. I work in marketing, so like kind of, I guess, but not really. But I spent all this time reading books and making content around books, and I have this battle in my mind of whether I want to be a creator or a consumer. I think it's good to do both, but sometimes I do feel myself weighed too heavily in one direction, and I wonder like, am I just consuming by reading all this stuff? And even though I'm putting content out, that's just critique, you know, like what am I actually creating myself? Should I be challenging myself more to create? And thinking about writing, should I spend more time in my creative writing again? But that's such a solo hobby, and then there's no validation and no feedback from it. So I find myself really leaning into this because that's what I like about it, is getting to engage with others, having a hobby where it does create this community aspect around it. And I think it is good to challenge yourself and to ask those questions like, am I just consuming or am I also creating? And do I care? Do I want to be doing one more than the other? Just checking in with yourself, whatever feels good to you. But it's a good thing and also a curse that this gives that instant validation and feedback that just keeps you coming back. Another one of the best things about being on BookTube is kind of obvious, but it feels weird to leave it off because it is one of the best things, is like the money that you get from being here. It's very nice to have a little bit of a side income going along, or if you make this your full income, then I'm sure, you know, you really, really love that income because that's everything you have. But for me, it's been nice to have a little side income and money that I have that goes into supporting this hobby more and using that money to then go buy books and support the authors that I really enjoy. I'd just be remiss to leave that off the list. Obviously, money is a nice thing. Quick pop-in, I'm just editing now, so just filming on my phone. Sorry, the quality's lower, but just wanted to say one thing I forgot to add in this section is getting ARCs sent to you from publishers, free advanced reader copies. That is pretty definitively one of the best perks of being a booktuber, and it kind of fits in this bucket of like the money you get from it that helps support the hobby. Also, just getting books sent to you for free is awesome, and you're getting to read them early. So you're gonna first look at books you're really excited about, which is a very, very cool perk and something that you kind of like, I at least get used to it and take it for granted. And then you have to remember how unique and special that is. And it's something that I really appreciate. Every opportunity that I've gotten to receive a book for free from a publisher, to read it, hopefully love it, and get to tell you about it. Sometimes I don't love it. That's just the nature of it. I appreciate that so much. And that is very much one of the best parts of being on BookTube. The next one is something that has been surprising to me and something that I've noticed throughout the years and didn't immediately attribute to BookTube, but I think BookTube is what's responsible for this. I feel like my communication, my verbal communication, has improved so much since starting a BookTube channel. And maybe you watch my channel and you think, girl, you don't communicate well at all. I hope you don't think that, because I think I communicate pretty well. But if I'm just comparing to pre and post BookTube, I feel so much more at ease in my body with myself communicating than I did before. I've gained so much confidence that I did not have before BookTube, and I think there's a lot of things that go into that. One of them is just naturally like sitting and talking to a camera feels so weird at first. Like if I really come into my body right now and look at what's happening, I'm sitting in a room by myself. My dog's here, but like I'm just sitting here talking to a camera as if I'm talking to a human, and I don't feel weird about it at all. I feel so at ease about that right now, and maybe that should feel strange, but I don't know. It feels very normal to me now, but it used to feel very weird in the beginning. So being able to do that in yourself is like the first hurdle, but doing that over and over and over and over and over and recording yourself a million times and watching that footage back and editing yourself a million times, you notice things about your speech that don't come across the way you want them to, that you're able to then take note of and work on, and see yourself progressing over time as you're editing yourself. You're like, wow, I take way fewer pauses. I say a lot less. Ooh, I didn't like that I kept repeating that word. I feel like I should challenge myself to think of better adjectives in the future instead of defaulting on the same one all the time. That's just been a really good practice of shaping that communication. And I think this is extended in many forms of my life, like beyond just BookTube and how I communicate when I sit down and film a video. I feel much more at ease with strangers. I feel like I just communicate way better with people. I'm still probably on the more introverted side for sure. Like I'm not the one who goes in and lights up a room when they're there, but I can communicate with pretty much anyone about anything and easily like have questions to ask them, ping pong conversations back and forth, where that has definitely not always been the case for me. And I think some of that comes from the networking side of BookTube, and like someone asks you to be on their book club and you don't really know them fully, but you've got to have an hour-long conversation with them and be able to keep the conversation going. Doing stuff like that over and over also helps grow your communication skills, your confidence skills, your networking skills. It's a lot of little things and little building blocks that really come together, and you may not even realize it. I didn't even realize what's happening. And then suddenly one day I was just like, wow, I am proud of myself for improving in this area that I didn't even realize I was working on, but I knew I always wanted to feel more confident in my communication, to be able to go into a room where I didn't know people and not feel like I was dying inside. So that's probably been the best thing about BookTube to me. While the community has been great and is also another top highlight, I think just the personal growth and development that I didn't even know I was achieving has been really fulfilling to see. And then lastly, this is something that could be a great thing or a horrible thing, depending on who you are, how you handle it, and then what kind of environment you have going on in your comment section. But it's pretty inevitable you're going to get negative comments no matter what. Even if you're not saying a negative thing on your channel, even if you're the best person in the world, like you're just gonna have people commenting negative things on your channel. And I'm lucky that I really don't get a lot. My comments are overwhelmingly positive or neutral. There's a very small percent that are negative, but they still happen. And those negative comments could make you or break you. But for me, I feel like they have been very validating, again, kind of related to the last point, and just building my own confidence in myself and realizing that other people's opinion like truly does not matter, because people will always have something negative to say and nobody knows you. None of these people who are leaving negative comments really truly knows you. They see the very, very tiny little percent of your life that you share in a video that goes on your YouTube channel that's probably just centered around books for the most part. Anything they have to criticize you on is based on this tiniest little portion of who you are as a whole person. And I think that's been an interesting thing that I've valued, is just like getting the experience to be vulnerable, put myself out there, get criticized, and realize that I'm good, that I don't care. Like it's not doing anything to me at all. I don't think a lot of people would call this a best thing, because depending on your environment, like if you're getting a lot of negative comments and you know it's really personal attacks for some reason, I'm sure that is a very detrimental thing that makes you not want to have a channel. I think BookTube is a relatively lesser negative space as opposed to other communities online, but it's still out there. People are still negative. And if you have a negative experience with negative comments, I am sorry. And I hope that you too realize that it really doesn't matter. These people have no idea who you are. Their comments don't matter at all. And they're such a small portion. They're such a small portion, you know? Like I'll take those negative comments to get all the rest of the positive engagement that I get, to be able to continue to have this creative outlet, to continue to grow my communication skills and my confidence and just feel good about myself, to have people who understand what it's like to read over 100 books a year and be excited about them, want to talk about them, and engage with you in a hobby that you're so passionate about. All of those things outweigh all of the negative things for me so much. I did not think this video would be this long. I didn't expect to be rambling this long. So if you made it this far through the video, thank you so much for being here. And thank you again for just being here supporting my channel. Like I said, whether you've been here the whole time or if you just recently found my channel, I just think it's really cool that you like hanging out with me on the internet and listening to what I have to say about books and other things that are going on. So thank you so much. I'm not going anywhere for the foreseeable future. Maybe I'll do another 5 years, maybe 10, who knows. But this was a fun way to just sit down and reflect on it all and the lessons I've learned over the years authors, and yeah, I hope you had a fun time watching. But that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!